Two more pages. Anonymous. Ooh, name not given. What is the exact definition of imprinting? I am looking for a deeper meaning than just associating with food. Well, I mean, I wish I could give you something real deep. People or humans from a young age. It has to happen in the early weeks of their life. Like Challenger was maybe about 5 weeks or 6 weeks old when he fell from the nest. So the people started feeding him that rescued him at that point. But usually the earlier you start doing it, the more hard imprint the bird will become. So if we took one of these youngsters out of the nest, which we would never do, it's against the law to just take a captive hatched eaglet and make it into a perfect educational bird. You have to release those eagles into the wild and try to keep them wild, like we do here. But as a hypothetical example, if we were to do that, if we started feeding that bird right from the time that it was hatched, it would be what we call a hard imprint. It would have no doubt that we were the parents. Sometimes if it fledges the nest and then it was brought into captivity and accidentally raised by someone who found it, that creates a human socialized bird. Even though it's not a hard imprint, it's what we more call a human socialized bird. And that again can be a problem for the bird if it's released in the wild, because it will always be landing near people looking for food. It may not be a hard imprint, but it'll look for people for a source. When our eagle volunteer got loose earlier this year, many of you may have seen the video, that bird was hatched, actually taken out of the wild as a baby out of a wild nest in northern California in the early days of the eagle recovery programs, and they picked 10 birds out of a wild nest that were babies, and they pair bonded them, and they were raised in enclosures at the San Francisco Zoo to become breed would know was captivity, because they were trying to bring back a species that was endangered and threatened. And so Hero was one of those birds from the San Francisco Zoo. So he's never really been in the wild, but when that September 11th day, when a storm knocked a big tree against the aviary netting and tore a big hole in it, and he escaped, he had no idea how to hunt. He's never hunted a day in his life, even though he was a mature bird. And we chased him all over Kingdom Come. We had to keep him in the media and get leads from people. Well, oftentimes we would find him perching in a tree over a cabin with a stream nearby, and that's very similar to what he looks down on at Eagle Mountain Sanctuary. He looks down at some rooftops of some of the buildings here. There's a chapel, a church. There's a little stream that goes down the front. So he may have been looking for his, trying to find his mate again, or looking for food by identifying with those types of things. And he did that several times. No matter where we went to see him, there would be those elements in the area where we'd find them. So that's humans. I guess in his case, he's an imprint, but a human socialized bird would do probably the same thing. So there you go. you said you're looking for a deeper meaning than just associating with food. That's the best I can do, Anonymous. Clawpaw, Crystal. She also was up at the Cubs game. It was good meeting you, Crystal. When traveling with Challenger in his cage, or does he have the freedom of the room? Well, obviously, when anybody transports a bird of prey, and there's a lot of groups across the country that transport birds for either falconry purposes or for educational purposes. All birds that are non-releasable can no longer survive in the wild, and as far as the educational birds. And they have to have some form of transportation. You have to transport them in a van, and so they have to be in some kind of a container with a perch inside. Well, Challenger has one that's specially designed for him, and on the side of his carrier is what we call it. There's a sliding door that can open so that he can look out, and there are times when he's in the van and we're driving down the road, we let him look out through the window. And when gets off the airplane, he goes to our hotel, stays in my hotel room most of the time. And he gets taken out for rehearsals, because we do rehearsals before we do any event at a stadium. And he gets taken out to clean his carrier, and if it's a setting where we can sit outside in the sun with him, we do that. Try to give him a little exposure to the sun while he's on the road. But every situation varies, you know. And like when I was in New York City for the Fox and Friends show, I took him out and took him down to Times Square just to get him out of the carrier for a while and just let people do some pictures with him and stuff like that. And a lot of soldiers kind of milling around Times Square, try to do pictures with the soldiers and the veterans and stuff. So I you know, I'm not going to spend a lot more time on that. All I can tell you is that carrier from time to time, because we have to clean the carrier, we have to feed them, you know, we have to exercise them, train them, things like that. So, alrighty, let's see. How did you get your start in this wonderful project? Another question from Crystal, but I think, Crystal, I answered that already. Sometime if you come visit here, maybe we can talk about it some more. But what else can we, the chatters, do to help? Well, you know, I've had you guys involved in the American Eagle Day thing. And I think Carolyn today sent you guys 10 states that have never come on board, and we would like you guys to look at that list. And if you know any, quickly. But we'd like to get some information to the people in those states and see if we can get some of those states on board this year. So that's one way that you guys can help, just, you know, being active in helping us achieve American Eagle Day nationally. But, you know, donations are never turned down. So some of you I know probably don't have a lot of money, and maybe some of you do. But we'll accept whatever you want to donate. If you want to support our gift shop, online gift shop, or when you come to visit here this summer, you go to our gift shop on the park. You can buy things that will help support our efforts. And there may be some other things that you can participate in to help us out. And I don't know what those are right now, but you know, since we've kind of come together as a group, some other things that we're trying to achieve for the Eagle for the future. So, but we do appreciate all the help that you guys have given us and your willingness to help us. Al, do you have a background in wildlife biology or any special education to help you in the care of the raptors at AEF? No, I did not have any. I don't have a wildlife biology degree. I basically, when I founded the foundation in '85, off my kitchen table, and I hired my first staff member soon after that. We got our first Eagle soon after that to help with our campaign. That was Osceola, the one-winged eagle. And I just hired people that already knew that, some of which were wildlife biologists. And then I've had mentors over the years, like the program in Tennessee. And I've just kind of learned from the people that I either hired or did research on my own. You know, when you have a passion about something, you have a thirst for learning stuff, you know. And but I don't do all the work around here. I mean, I do a lot of work in 24/7, many times 7 days a week. But I have professionals that care for birds and do our educational programs because there's just too much stuff to do. When you take care of 80 birds a day, and that doesn't even involve the birds that come in for rehab or the hack birds, the eaglets that we hatch. That's a lot of work to do every day, and so we have people who are trained in that to do that. And we also have a great volunteer staff here that help. It's a team effort. Okay, Aldi. Okay, I got that one. You got a lot of questions, Clawpaw. You should have asked them in Chicago. Nah, just kidding you. Is there a plan to put a cam in the Picamate area to see the interaction between the eagles in off-breeding season? You know what? I mean, I'd never really thought about putting one in the Picamate section. I want to get some cams on two of the other nests here in Eagle Mountain Sanctuary. Maybe next year we'll see if the money's there. But I guess in the off season, since we have 4 cams on the computer here, and maybe we could run a cable over there into the Picamate section and give you a little peek of what goes on over there. Again, those 4 cams on the nest, you're not going to be able to see very much, because once the youngsters are taken out of there, the parents probably are not going to frequent that nest very, very much in the off season. Let's see. Not a lot of people have seen how they interact when they are not breeding, brooding, and raising young. Okay. Okay, her last question from Clawpaw, Crystal. What is one of Al's most memorable experiences in relation to eagles or raptors? You know what? It's too hard a question. My life is so busy and consumed with eagles and traveling with the eagles and birds, and there's been a lot of highlights involved in that. I'll tell you that one of the greatest blessings that ever happened to us was forming a partnership with Dolly Parton Dollywood Park, because they made a lot of dreams come true for us, not only building us a multi-million-dollar facility, but the donation that they give and support that they give us every year on top of that. And many of you may have seen Dolly when they opened up the new Wild Eagle ride this year. They just decided that they would donate the first 50 seats to us, and they do an auction involving Dolly, and they raised $37,000 for us. You know, that's a blessing. You know, that comes from God. I didn't ask for that. It just came our way, and Dollywood has been like that with us all these years. I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship of a corporation. They get the benefit giving their guests a big blessing to see all the eagles on Eagle Mountain Sanctuary and see our bird show, and we get blessed by all those people coming and learning about eagles and birds of prey and the environment. So, and of course the donations that come from that source as well. So it's I would say that's something that I will always treasure, that you know, Dolly's company and our foundation were able to come together and do so many years of work together. We're on our 27th year this year here at Dollywood. Or no, that's not true. I'm wrong about that. 23rd year at Dollywood this year, I believe. So we've been together for a long time. Great opportunities to meet people from all over the country, well known, not so well known, rich and poor, doesn't matter. Just a lot of great people I've met over the years, and I can't really compare them. They're just, you know, it's just been a wonderful time. So, all right, let me see. Got to move on to somebody else here. Klapa, I hope that was sufficient. Nonia or Nania 54, Cindy. First, not so taking the babies from the parents. It just seems so young to take from the parents. What impact does it have on Indy and Franklin for the babies to be taken? What happens to eagle parents that lay eggs and then have them taken? How long does the foundation monitor the eagles when they are released at the lake? What happens if they can't hunt for food here, or does it depend on the area they're living in? Well, I'm going to start with that last question. She also said, I just want to say that after watching all the video of Range Eaglet Ranger, I am in awe, really. Thank you, God, for the AEF and all they do for eagles and the servicemen and servicewomen. I appreciate that. We feel honored that we can do something to help the families of fallen soldiers and maybe inspire the troops a little bit when we visit a base or whatever. But appreciate that comment. Okay, eagles can lay eggs different times of year in different parts of the country. Now, Gretchen will tell you down in Florida that they lay them in December. And so at the Eagle Sanctuary, we seem to get them laid in the March period, you know, in March. And I'm sure that when you go up north and up to Alaska, there's some variance on the time of year that that the eggs will be laid, but it's essentially around the spring, I would imagine, in any place, because they, except for, like say, Florida in December. Anyways, Next question. Boy, you have so many questions, Nonia or Cindy. Okay, you're not sold on the taking the babies. These parents cannot, Indy and Franklin cannot be released into the wild. They lived in the wild once, they got shot, they had permanent injuries to their left wing. This is the best life we can give them, is to pair up, to have a mate, have a nice natural setting to live in. But by law, we have to release the youngsters into the wild and try to raise them in a way that they will have a good chance of surviving. And so that's what we try to do. And we've been doing this so long, where we take eaglets from the parents at 6 weeks of age off the park, and off park, where our facility is much more private, we can leave them in the nest till about 8 weeks. But in order to successfully hack an eagle into the wild using a hacking tower, they have to be in the hacking tower long enough where they can imprint on the area that they're going to be released in. You know, we can't just pull them out of a nest here at 12 weeks of age, 13 weeks of age, throw them up in the air. I mean, you could do that, but putting them in the hack tower gives them a chance to acclimate to the area that they're going to be released into. Allow some of the birds that we release to come back to the general area and build a population of eagles in this area, and that's the purpose of hacking. The parents, you know, in all the years that we've been removing eaglets from their parents early, we don't, I mean, it's very, very hard to tell what the emotions of an animal is sometimes. I mean, especially an eagle that don't show a lot of emotion. I mean, they may chatter and chirp, but and screech, whatever sound they might make. But we can't read into it. You know, we can't read into what their emotions are. I'm sure, like any parent, animal parents, you know, they get over the fact that their young leave the nest. And whether taking them from the nest earlier, we can tell that. But what I can tell you is that usually, as soon as we remove the eaglets from the nest, they'll go to the nest one time, they'll see the eaglets aren't there, and they'll go about their own business the next, you know, the next day. They don't seem like they're in mourning. They act normally, their normal behavior, like they would before they even laid eggs. But again, nobody will ever be able to answer that question, because we cannot get inside the head of an eagle, and we can only observe their outer behavior behavior and see if there's anything different in the way they behave because a young was taken from a nest early. And that, I'm sure that's the same thing in the wild, because youngsters get killed by raccoons in nests, and they fall from nests. But I think God made their survivors, and no matter what happens, their whole objective is to survive and procreate if they're prepared. So I hope that helps relieve your concerns. And we've had a number of people that are concerned about that, but that's the best we can do, because if we're going to release these eagles at all, we want to make sure that they're going to be as wild as possible, and they're going to have a fair chance out there to make it. And so far, using the method that we use, it's been relatively successful. And it's not just us. Other states have done hacking programs. Like say, the state of Tennessee has released over 300 eaglets here in the state since the early 80s. So it's okay. Say eggs and have them taken. Same thing when you remove the eggs from the nest. If they're pulled from the nest early enough, then they'll lay some more eggs. But if they're already into the nesting cycle, into the incubation cycle, for several weeks, you're not going to, or a couple of weeks, more than likely they're not going to lay. If they're pulled during the first week, there's a good chance that they'll lay some new eggs. And how long does the foundation monitor the eagles when they are released at the lake? Like I say, after we release the eagles at the lake, we monitor them as long as we can until they leave the area. We're not picking up a signal anymore on the transmitter, and at that point we stop tracking, because we know that the eagles couldn't possibly track them unless we had a satellite transmitter. And what happens if they can't hunt for food? Just like all animals in the wild, young babies in all species, they can't hunt for food, and they don't survive, unfortunately. But that is the way God made things, and it's survival of the fittest. Not every animal that's ever hatched or born is able to make it. See. Anyways, I think that's enough on those questions, Cindy. I hope that helps you. And thank you for the compliment. All right, Wildlife 54, Nina. When you travel with Challenger, how and what do you feed him? Does he have his own perch room? He does have his own perch. We have a perch in his carrier, and we have perches that will stick in the ground outside and tether him to those perches if we want to sun him. If we're in a good enough spot where we feel secure that he's not going to get attacked by a dog, or it's a fairly natural area, we'll put them on an outdoor perch. Trout, occasionally gets beef heart. He gets other ratatouille once in a while, but mainly trout. Now on the road we feed them salmon. As soon as we get off the airplane, we head right to Whole Foods, and we get them some either some Fiji water, like I'm drinking today, or some other real good water, spring water at Whole Foods, and we buy him Atlantic wild-caught salmon, and that's what he eats on the road most of the time. So. Okay, catnip, joy. How many eyelids do eagles have, and what are they called? Well, I mean, of their eye up, and it's a clear membrane so they can see through it, but that can clean off their eye, but it can also protect their eye. And you know, birds, because they do fly, and they fly through forests and woods and stuff like that, I'm sure there's some protection from branches, there's some protection from you know, things that blow into their eyes while they're flying, you know, caused by the wind. I mean, there's so they've got this special membrane that does protect the eyeball. So, what is feaking? Feaking. I think feaking is basically just an eagle rubbing its beak on a rock, or over time in the wild it keeps its, because like in captivity they can grow, their beaks can grow very long, and they can actually at some point get in the way of them eating their food. We, you know, cope the beaks or trim the beaks on a periodic basis when they get too long. And we do the same thing with the talons. If the talons get too long, they just curve around, because you know the beak and the talons are basically like a fingernail. It's almost similar material to what our fingernail would be. And you know how our fingernails will grow very long if we don't trim them. So, let's see. What is preening? Preening is just a bird taking its beak and pulling on its feathers to clean it, or to straighten it out, shake to lay them in position. And you know, they do, but the preening is to take each feather and straighten it and clean it, and maybe even get a parasite out of it. You know, it depends really on the situation.